Yes, the guys. I'm currently in Stone, and this story is about a lady called Christina Collins. Now, I know what you're thinking, but you've done that one before. Yeah, we have done it before, but I was recording vertical when I done it. And obviously, the whole point in me going horizontal is so that I can put these videos onto YouTube with the hope of eventually earning money on that. So, yeah, head over to the YT. I don't push it, but I'm probably going to start pushing it a little bit more. Obviously, that's where the money is. And the brands, they're all on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram either, or I am on Instagram. I just don't upload to Instagram just because it's one thing after the other. Do you know what I mean? It's a bloody nightmare sometimes. If I uploaded to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook every day, honest to God, that would probably take me about an hour and a half to do all of them. I just don't have that sort of time. Like, anyway, Christina Collins. Oh yeah, before we get into Christina Collins, we need to get into the sponsor of this video. So, now the sponsor for this video is a business called Hypnosis for Progress. Last week, I went and seen Debbie, and honest to God, it was the best 2 hours of my life. I think I was there for about 3.5 hours. I could talk to her for weeks. She's an unbelievable lady. But yeah, what she done for me, she unlocked my head, man. She gave me a half hour, she gave me like a 45-minute taster session of all this hypnosis stuff. I was petrified before I walked in there that she was going to turn me into a bloody sheep or a chicken. But yeah, she didn't. She just unlocked my head. She enabled me to relax onto that deeper level, which was bloody awesome. For the first time in years and years, since I can remember, I actually de-stressed. Like, I felt like I was on a different level. Honestly, it was absolutely fantastic, guys. I would definitely recommend. It's not just stress levels that Debbie can help you with. She can do the weight loss ones. She can get you off smoking, energy drinks, any other bad habits that you've got. I might try mine with the swearing, see if she can unlock that for my head. I think I'd need a bit longer than one session, but she can also do past life regression as well, which is a big thing at the minute. I'm not going to go on too much about that, but have a look into it, and if it's your thing, give Debbie a shout. I can really recommend the service. But yeah, Debbie's email address is there, a Facebook account is there, phone number is there. Give Debbie a shout. If you do book on with Debbie, then at the end of your session that you've had with Debbie, please mention that you've come from the videos. It would really, really help. Just so businesses feel like they get value for the sponsorship. Do you know what I mean? Debbie's helped me out with the sponsorship of the videos that enabled me to get this camera that I'm talking to right now. So if you do book on, then I'd be really thankful for anyone that just tells Debbie that they came from the videos after your session. But yeah, anyway, Christina Collins and the Bloody Steps. Let's get into it, guys. Oh, big yourselves up on 20,000 folk in the room as well. Get in there, gang.
Just outside Rugeley, beside a quiet stretch of the Trent and Mersey Canals, an old flight of steps leading away from the towpath. They're known locally as the Bloody Steps. The name's connected to the death of Christina Collins, whose final journey along the canal in June 1839 became one of the most notorious criminal cases in Victorian Staffordshire. Christina had been living and working as a dressmaker in Liverpool, while her husband Robert had travelled to London in search of employment. And after finding work there, he sent Christina what little money he could afford and asked her to join him. Travelling by road was expensive. The developing railway network was also beyond the means of many ordinary people. A cheaper alternative was to travel as a passenger aboard one of the working boats carrying goods through the canal system. And so on Saturday the 15th of June 1839, Christina left Liverpool aboard a boat operated by the carrying company, Pickford and Company. At Preston Brook, she transferred to a working boat commonly identified as the Staffordshire Knot. It was carrying goods south towards London and was commanded by its captain, James Owen. Working alongside Owen were two boatmen, George Thomas, who was also known as Dobble, and William Ellis, sometimes recorded under the name Lambert. The fourth member of the crew was a young boatboy named William Musson. Christina was the only female passenger travelling for most of the journey. The surviving evidence suggests that the men began drinking heavily. Witnesses would later describe them as intoxicated, with some believing they'd helped themselves to alcohol carried among the boat's cargo. Their behaviour towards Christina also became increasingly threatening. When the boat reached Stoke-on-Trent at about midday on the 16th of June, Christina complained to a Pickford's employee about the way that she was being treated. The same employee heard her tell George Thomas, "Leave me alone, I'll have nothing to do with you." But when the boat departed Stoke later that afternoon, Christina was still aboard. For a short part of the journey, another woman travelled on the boat. Her presence appears to have given Christina some temporary protection. But after that passenger left, Christina was once again alone with the beasts. At Stone, around 8 o'clock that evening, Christina made another appeal for help. According to Hugh Cordwell, a canal clerk who later gave evidence in court, Christina told him that the men were becoming drunk, and that in her own words she was afraid that they would meddle with her. Cordwell's response was that if anything happened, she should report the men to their employers at the final end of the journey. It was advice that offered Christina no immediate protection. She continued south, but she now appears to have spent part of the journey walking beside the boat on the towpath, rather than remaining aboard with the men. At Aston Lock, shortly after leaving Stone, a witness saw Christina sitting outside the lockhouse. She was sharpening a small penknife. Nobody could say with certainty why she was doing this, but after what she was complaining about earlier, it's possible that she felt she might need to protect herself later in the night. As the boat arrived, one of the crew was heard bad-mouthing Christina and saying that he hated the sight of her. Nevertheless, she rejoined the boat. Further along the canal, the Staffordshire Knot passed another working boat. Its captain later testified that he heard members of Christina's crew using obscene and threatening language about her. Another boatman encountered Christina walking alone along the towpath near Sandon. Shortly afterwards, he passed Owen's boat and was asked whether he'd seen a female passenger. The question was accompanied by another crude statement about what the men intended to do with her. And by this point, darkness was setting in. At around midnight, the boat entered Who Mill Lock, near Great Haywood. The lock keeper, James Mills, and his wife Anne were awakened by cries of distress coming from outside. Looking from the window, they saw a woman on the boat with 3 men nearby. They heard Christina refusing to enter the cabin. "I'll not go in," she shouted, followed by "Don't attempt me." Anne Mills called down and asked who the woman was. One of the men answered that she was a passenger. When Anne asked whether anyone belonging to Christina was with her, she was told that Christina's husband was aboard the boat. Now obviously that was a lie. Robert Collins was waiting for his wife in London. The Staffordshire Knot continued through the darkness towards Colwich and Rugeley. The young boat boy, Musson, later said that he saw Christina alive near Colwich Lock. Now what happens after this remains uncertain. There were no independent witnesses aboard the boat, and the different accounts given by the crew were confusing and contradictory. At some point between Colwich and Brindley Bank, poor Christina disappeared. Between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, another boatman encountered James Owen and George Thomas on the towpath near Rugeley. They repeatedly asked him if he'd seen a woman. Their own boat had apparently stopped for around half an hour at Rugeley Wharf before continuing south. During the early hours of Monday the 17th of June, another canal worker spotted something in the water at Brindley Bank. It was the body of poor Christina Collins. She was removed from the canal and carried from the towpath towards Rugeley. The route led up the flight of steps, which would eventually become known as the Bloody Steps. Later stories claim that blood from Christina's body dripped onto the stone as she was carried upwards. Some versions even say the stains could never be completely removed, although that's just part of the legend rather than established historical facts. What is known is that Christina's clothing was damaged. Her dress and her underwear were torn. One sleeve had been pulled away and there were signs that she'd been handled violently. A surgeon concluded that she died from drowning, and meanwhile the boat continued towards Fazeley. Captain Owen told canal officials that his female passenger had disappeared and that he feared that she'd drowned. He claimed that Christina had been mentally disturbed and had deliberately entered the water, but Christina's belongings were still on board the boat. Her shoes were found in the cabin along with a bonnet. Her bonnet was crushed and its ribbons were still fastened, suggesting that it might have been pulled from her head. The behaviour of the crew also raised suspicion. When questioned, the men gave different accounts on where they'd last seen Christina. They were still under the influence of drink, and some responded with anger when asked about what happened to Christina. All 4 members of the crew were arrested. The boat boy Musson was later released and appeared as a witness. The 3 adult boatmen were initially tried in July 1839 of charges relating to a sexual attack. Although the circumstances created strong suspicion, the judge ruled that there was insufficient legal evidence to prove the offence. The jury was instructed to find them not guilty. However, the men were not released. A separate charge of murder remained outstanding, and they continued to be held at Stafford Jail. The murder trial began in Stafford in March of 1840. The prosecution presented the evidence of Christina's repeated complaints, the threatening language used by the men, the cries heard at Who Mill Lock, the condition of her clothing and the conflicting stories told after her disappearance. There was also evidence from a convicted bigamist who had shared a prison cell with James Owen. He claimed that Owen had described a violent attack upon Christina by members of the crew. It was an extremely controversial testimony. The witness was hoping to receive a pardon, and even the trial judge warned the jury that the evidence had to be treated with great caution. No one could provide an independent eyewitness account of Christina being thrown into the canal. The defence argued that she might have fallen in, or entered the water by herself. After deliberating for around half an hour, the jury found James Owen, George Thomas and William Ellis guilty of murder. All three were sentenced to death. William Ellis was granted a last-minute reprieve after doubts were raised about his part in Christina's death. His death sentence was commuted to transportation for life. For James Owen and George Thomas, there was no reprieve. They were publicly hanged outside Stafford Jail on the 11th of April 1840. Both men continued to deny knowing exactly how Christina had entered the water. Questions about the strength of the convictions have never completely disappeared. The evidence was largely circumstantial, and the crew's accounts were unreliable. Even the prosecution's most damaging witness had reasons for his own cooperating. But certain facts are beyond dispute. Christina repeatedly expressed fear of the men responsible for carrying her safely to London. Her requests for help were heard but not acted upon. Witnesses heard the crew threaten her, and shortly after her final cries of distress, she was found dead in the canal. She'd begun a journey intending to join her husband, but she never reached him. Today, the canal at Brindley Bank is once again a peaceful place. Boats passing through Rugeley, walkers follow the towpath, and the water gives a little indication of what happened here during a night in June of 1839. But the old steps remain, and through the name by which they are still remembered, the Bloody Steps, the story of Christina Collins has never entirely left the canal. So rest in peace, Christina Collins.